Hi, I'm Tony Campbell. Thanks for coming out. Today's demo is going to be how to turn something square. About a year ago, there was a contest at another club, and the instructions was turn something square. So I waited till the last weekend before it was due, and then went online and found somebody or saw a video that I kind of liked and was intrigued by it. So then I did it, and this was the one. This was the bowl that I had turned for that one. And after I turned this, there was a few things. I looked at it and it just didn't quite look right. My sides weren't nice and straight. My reveals weren't exactly perfect here. If I looked at the bottom, it really wasn't square looking. So I was just thinking back of how could I make that better. So then I spent a little bit of time working on that, and I've turned a few of these, and I gave a demo, and I've learned quite a bit. So I'm going to try to share that with you today. All the things that I learned, things not to do that I did, and then a few of the tips that I did learn that I believe makes it better. And as I turn more of these, I think that they're looking better and better as I do them. It's not a real exciting bowl to look at, but it's different in the fact, of course, that it's multi-axis. So you're not just turning one bowl. We're going to start out and actually turn two bowls at first, and then you separate those. So we'll go through that. So this all starts off with, I'll go through a little bit of glue up, or just showing you, talk about it real quick. So you can see a final one here. This is glued up, but of course you've got to start with your blocks that you're going to use. So in this case here, it's going to be we're targeting a 6-inch bowl. So I go ahead and cut my blanks. These are not nice ones right now. This is 6.5 by 6.5 by basically 3 inches. So you get yourself 2 of those, and then you're going to need a waste board to put in between them. So then you glue all that together. Now if you're doing a demo like this and you don't have a bandsaw handy, I did one extra step. I've glued a piece of paper in between this paper here. I've glued this in between one of these so I can split it. Once I get it turned to, that we actually want to split it in half, then we can split it on that piece of paper. So that's in there. Now a little story for that is, I'll go ahead and share something that happened, because of course as we do things, we need to share if something bad happens or something unexpected. So this one here, I had this one glued up. Now I've got at least 5 reasons this came apart of me on the lathe. And I went back and decided, I looked back to say, well, why did that happen? Because I didn't want that to happen again. And I already had 5 other ones glued up, and I had kind of used those same mistakes in those 5 too. So I ended up cutting those 5, took them back to the bandsaw, cut out the baseboard, and redid them, because I wasn't happy that this had come apart. So a couple of things I did different. Instead of using this paper, I had this other cardstock, and I thought maybe it would work. So this was one thing I had changed. And I'm not saying that that's the problem. It's just one of the things that I had changed from the first time I did it. So I had changed that. I'd also decided that maybe splitting that in the demo, it took a lot of effort to split it. So then I'm like, well, I don't need so much glue. So I just put glue around the outside edge. So you can see there was no glue here in the center. So I reduced the amount of glue. So I'm advising, likely don't do that. Go ahead and glue the thing up, because you do have this on the lathe. So don't try to get chintzy or think, well, I think less glue will work. No, go ahead and glue it. Glue this together. So that happened. I also think one of the reasons I possibly had issues was that original cut. When I started cutting this lumber down, of course you go to your bandsaw and you've got a blade in it. Well, you don't want to change the blade, so you use the one that's in it. So I was using a smaller blade, and I wasn't getting a nice cut for actually gluing something together. Yes, sir?
Back in school, we always used paper bags.
Okay.
Paper shopping bags for that.
To do the splitting?
Yeah.
Okay, and that may be better. It's probably a little bit thicker than this paper.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe slightly different than the other paper I had used, so. Yeah, free, yeah.
Where you can find them.
Yeah. So.
Regular printer paper will work.
As well, just white paper? Okay.
Tony, have you ever tried a different size center divider picker?
I haven't. It would change the look of it. Yeah, I haven't. I didn't go down that path just yet. I went down the path of trying different size bowls, doing a 4-inch, 5-inch, and 6-inch, but I didn't change the waste board.
Okay.
So, but a little lesson there learned on the glue up. So like I said, I took all those apart, even this one, took it apart. I put the right bandsaw blade on there. I had much nicer cuts, nice flat surfaces, better, more glue than before. Went back to the paper that I knew worked. So just a little something that I learned turning that I think it's worth mentioning. Anybody want to see that? So, all right, so that's for the glue up, so you don't need to do any more glue up today. And a little more thing about this too. You see this one. This was, as I was thinking through this, I was trying to figure out, and I saw Ronald Kane out of the Netherlands. He's the one that I saw turn this. A great wood turner. He's got a training facility and everything in the Netherlands. So he did it a particular way. And I've made some changes to the way he does it, but you can go out to YouTube and watch his video. He's mentioned there at the top of the page. You can go out there and watch his video, but I drew this up and I was trying to think of different ways to do it so that I could get the center. So on paper, I'll say this looked good on paper. When I drew it on paper, it's like I'm going to put those, I'm going to, turn both of them, turn the one cylinder, turn the other cylinder, and I've got this waste board in the center, and I'm thinking, oh, let's multi-use that waste board. Let's decide to put our tenons inside of there. So like I said, on paper it looked good. When I tried to implement on the lathe, it didn't take too long to decide, no, that's not good, to try to cut a groove and form 2 tenons inside of that. So I quickly backed off of that, and now I put my tenon on the outside, so I'll show that too. So just something that I also learned or went through, and if something doesn't feel right or feels dangerous as you're doing it, you need to stop, back off, and think about it. So, but just things I learned going through this. A quick little story here. First time I took a class, we were going to turn something square, and I didn't follow the instructions, so I ended up with this strange looking candy dish. I didn't have the points right. So that's, turn something square. That didn't quite turn out, but I think it makes a better lamp stand maybe if I put a lamp on top of it. So that may have to repurpose that. And then must have moved the bowl. Okay, so when I say we're going to turn this square, what I'm talking about here is we're not leaving it square. We're actually turning this square. These edges here aren't from the cut lumber that we've actually cut on the table saw or bandsaw. We're going to form these. But now if you wanted to turn something square, that's what this one is. Now if you look at these two from the top, you're thinking, well, Tony, that's the same. It's a square bowl. Well, this one has the curves this way because we're going to turn that on a different axis. So this is your standard square turning if somebody said turn something square, and you're going to leave this square. So I cut it exactly 6 inches, and that's the actual edge, cut by the bandsaw and then sanded. But then, this is mounted on the lathe and simply turned to where you're turning the radius here. So this is turning something square, but this is turning it square. Makes a difference. So you want to pass these two around maybe just so everybody can see those at the same time. Any questions, anything at this point? Wake up, Tom. Okay. All right, so we do have our blank here. I think Tom thinks this is sassafras, possibly?
Possibly.
Okay. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. Oh yeah, like I said, as I was going through this, I learned a few things. So has anybody ever bought a ruler? You pick up a ruler. Do you trust it? Nope. If you buy one?
I don't trust them at all.
Yeah, that's exactly. I bought these two at CVS. I thought they'd be great, especially round stuff, working on the lathe and stuff. And I'm using them both in the shop, and all of a sudden something wasn't measuring right between the table saw and the bandsaw. And I got to looking, and it's the fact that this one here is off 1/8 of an inch in the foot. So if you pick up something, don't just necessarily trust it, check it. The red one's good, the blue one's not. So just, something to note. So we won't use the blue one. So, all right. So here we are. We have to decide something else for the glue up. When I do the glue up is try to keep all of the grain orientation running the same way. So in this case here, you could consider this spindle turning in the sense that everything's running this way, even the wasteboard. But we're not going to use the spindle roughing gouge for this. You could in this orientation, but of course as soon as you turn that, you're not going to be able to use the spindle roughing gouge. So we're just going to use the bowl gouge today. And something that I think I noticed was I was turning the spindle first and then going to the end grain more. And I decided maybe just do the end grain first because I had noticed some tear out, but I can't really say for sure. So go home and turn about 20 or 30 of these and make your own decision on which way you want to necessarily do first. But so let's go ahead and decide that we're going to turn the end grain first, which then means, of course, I need to put my marks here on the center here. So this is, you guys see in the overhead or?
Yeah.
Slow down, right? All right, so this is 6.5 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark it at the 3 1/8 with a better pencil.
6.5, you might want to go for 3 1/4.
Good point, 3 1/4. I would have caught it on the other side because I always check I usually measure once and then twice on the other side. So yes, 3 1/4. And then here's the 3/4, so we're going to split that with the 3/8. So we're going to have that one on this side, and of course we do the same on the other side. Three 1/4 and 3/8 here. All right, so get your marks there. And then I always have a little bit of fun getting that exactly where I want it. It always seems to move on me, so I've got this nice little pointing tool now. Just happened to be laying in the shop the other day. So I come in there and, of course, make the mark, and then usually it moves on me anyway, or the grain of the wood kind of moves it. But do the best you can, because each one of these little things that you mark and stuff, it can play or doesn't play. Some of it you can actually turn away. But it's best just to go ahead and get everything you can exactly as you can, or as exact as you can. So we'll get those two in there, which brings up my next learning thing that I learned. Just talk about that for a second. So first time I did this, this is a drive point. Put it in your chuck from one way. So I used this one the first time, and I noticed that it kept loosening up on me. Well, what was happening with this guy is it was driving into the end grain, and it just kept driving in, and if I didn't have enough pressure on it, it was just driving and driving and driving. So I could have went ahead and finished turning, but when I realized what was happening, it's like, well, that's not right. Stop, take the time to think about it. So to get past that, at that point, I've got a 3/4 inch hole drilled in the side. And like I said, I could have kept going with this. Wouldn't have been proper to keep doing that. But I do have a big bite, and that big bite allowed me to span across that 3/4 inch hole. I just had to kind of manually pick the center of it with the two wings. But by doing that, I was able to go ahead and turn with this big bite. So just something to know about picking your drive centers. And then for this one, I'm going to use an extension. And one more tip, I hope you don't mind these tips I'm spewing at you that I've learned. Yesterday I was preparing this, so I'm going to use this extension here. But of course, to get this out later, you need to be able to see it here in this hole so you can go back and put the two bars in there and drive this back out. Well, I was checking this one to see, but this one doesn't go all the way in. And as I got looking at that, I'm not sure where this one came from, but as I got looking at it, somebody's been hammering on the end of this one with a steel hammer. So it's mushroomed out the edges here. So this is bad, because if I was to put this in here now and push it in, it's likely going to get stuck. And for one thing, I can't even see it to actually take it out. So yeah, shouldn't be using steel hammers on the ends of these, or you're going to mushroom them just like this one.
Some of those are just made sort
ones. I have,
It-
some that are brand new, you go in there and they're not long enough that you can get it out with a wedge in there.
Yeah, I think this one fits that as well.
Yeah, I've got a couple like that. I don't use them.
So we're going to go ahead and use the extension here just to get it a little further away. So we'll use the extension, and we're going to do that. Buzz took away my tailstock. Where'd it go? That's all right. All right, so we'll bring up the tailstock. Let's hope this is going to work. Yeah, just try to make sure you actually use the points you just made. Questions? Anything?
Not yet.
I have one. Does it make a difference if you use a worm screw on your headstock rather than the pointer? Or?
For this, I guess you could use a worm screw. I hadn't thought about it for this, since it's just going into that 3/4 inch. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, I guess you could, but yeah, I hadn't considered a worm screw for this one. All right, let's see if that gets us. Now the key to all of this is, and it's somewhat, this project seems somewhat simple, but you have to cut a straight line. You have to be the bandsaw, the table saw. That's the tool in your hand at this point, is you have to cut that straight line. Something else is you could have taken this, or I could have taken this to the bandsaw and I could have taken off some of these corners. But that takes away practice. You may as well, since you're going to load this up and you've got this wood here, you may as well use that as practice if you need it. If you've been turning for 50 years, maybe you don't want the practice, and maybe you take it to the bandsaw, you take off the corners. But I just consider it good practice to go ahead and use it here. My safety glasses just have a little bit of prescription in them so I can actually see what I'm doing. Then of course the face shield. Turn your lathe down. Now a key to this, I hope that thing, is like I said, you have to cut a straight line, but you're going to need some reference so that you can keep this thing straight and keep checking it. So the one thing that I do is take your get your banjo set up, and then get your tool rest and line it up with the bed. So I'm just eyeballing down to where I'm getting the tool rest lined up with the bed. And then make sure that you, of course, are far enough out to clear it. Lock that down. See if we're about the right height for cutting. So then we're just going to start chipping away and taking off that edge. Got a little bit of bark here. Of course, it's going to come off, but it's pretty solid on there. And I've got my roller. We're going to be checking that pretty often. So let's go ahead and get started. Does that make anybody dizzy? I see people doing demos and people are doing this constantly, and it finally makes me, so I try not to do it too much. Just start off slow, get it up to a speed you're comfortable with. And then just start over on the edge, taking, you're going to end up over here with your cut. So you're coming across here and you're going to end up over here. So go ahead and kind of plant yourself over here, lock the tool into your hip, come back over here, and then make your cut come across. And what I'm watching is that upper edge up here. So I'm watching up here to see it. You don't want to necessarily watch your cut. You want to watch up here, and I can see whether I'm cutting that straight line or not. A little bit of that bark. Tool rest is moving on me.
What's your speed, Tom?
0. Let me check and see that. Not bad. I think I'm actually going to slide this over a little bit just to get that knob out of the way. It's a little close there.
Is that tool rest from a different lathe or custom jet?
I have no idea. I don't have a jet, so that handle seems like it should be on. I guess it's probably that'll work. Hey, that's even better. All right, so let's turn that back on. Right now it says about 600. So starting slow. We'll pick up more speed as we take a little bit of this bark off. Just kind of come across nice and easy. And of course, if we stop that and look, we can see, you know, we're making a cut. It's not looking parallel, but we've got a little more to go. But let's take and move the lathe up. Our tool rest. And try to keep it parallel with the bed. Anybody get any of that? Yeah, so we lost most of that bark there. And pretty much it's just repeat this until you get this down to a cylinder. And when you're doing this too, it's a good time to go ahead and practice. You know, I'm right-handed, so this feels very natural going this way. But in turning, you need to learn to turn left-handed as well. And it's really the same thing. We're going to end over here, but I'm just going to lean over here, do the same exact thing, but just go ahead and learn to turn left-handed. And really it's not so much you're turning left-handed, you're really just moving your body in the opposite direction. But it's a good time. Once again, you've got this practice wood that you're getting rid of. Go ahead and take the time and use it for practice. And this is also a good time to check. For one thing, you're checking for straight. I came off the cut there a little bit at the end, so of course I've got to go back and correct that. Got a little bit of a wave there, so I need to be aware of that and check that. We know that we're not getting to we're targeting 6 inches. This is 6.5, so we have to at least get to the waste-board first, so we know we're not there. But then I also need to start watching my cut against the bed to see if it's parallel with the bed. Because I've got to keep that parallel with the bed, because I'm going to do it on this side and we're going to do it on this side when we turn the other way. In order to get that 90-degree corner, those both need to be parallel to the bed.
Have you done this with both dry and wet wood?
I haven't used wet wood.
Okay.
So wet being that just freshly turned, you're going to turn it and then watch it kind of warp and after the fact. Yeah.
Well, even if it's been laying out there 6 months, it's probably still damp.
Yeah. And I think this is all pretty dry, what I've used so far. probably would be nice to just have a little bit of light on this. It washes out the camera, let me know. Is that okay on the camera? All right, so once again, I think we took care of most of the being straight, so we're just going to keep going here. And it's easy to keep turning right, but you may as well turn left as well. And you're also using a different portion of the gouge that's also sharp. So why not go ahead and take advantage of that? But I do have to say, turning right-handed does feel more natural, of course. Okay, we are getting close. We did get down to the wasteboard there. And I definitely need to clean up my straight there. It's terrible at this point. That's about the worst I've seen. But I do want to start paying attention to, am I getting close to my 6-inch target that I'm after? So I made myself a jig for that. You, of course, could, put calipers on there and measure that, but it's kind of large. I came up with this jig. It has multiple purposes, so I can just simply drop the jig on top of here and start to get a sense. Now, the jig is 6 1/8 inch. I gave myself a little bit of extra for final tune-up or sanding. I just left a little bit. But, of course, when that drops down onto about halfway, if we target that, I've targeted different things. But if it's 6 1/8 here, then it's going to be slightly less at the curve there. So, but this gives me that indicator as to whether I'm getting close enough yet. I think we'll go ahead and get a little more speed here, get a little bit closer. Once again, keeping the tool rest parallel with the bed. And trying to go ahead and get that line straight across there before I run out of wood, or have to decide that this is not a 6-inch box or bowl, it's going to be a 5 1/2 or 5-inch. It's just, no, I didn't take off that much, but that's when all of a sudden you'll be surprised. All right. And we're going to go ahead and get a little more speed now that we are down to round, and we're going to get a better cut. And then when you're getting down to what you believe is going to be your final cut, go ahead and, of course, try to make it straight as possible across there, and take your time. Can see where we are. A little bit of a hump there in the center. So a little more to go. Checking against the bed rest again. It's a little bit of a hump in the center. All right, we're getting pretty straight there, so for demo purposes, I think that is straight. Come back over here. We're starting to drop down, so I think we're going to call that. And over here, we're good, so I think we'll call it that for that one.